The next set of technical articles are focused on, issues which are not in your study text or on the study hub. The first one is audit for less complex entities. A standalone proportionate standard for audit of less complex entities. Like, in SBR, we had IFRS for SMEs, reduced compliance and reduced disclosure. So keeps core risk-based principles for ISAs, but simplifies the wordings, procedures, and documentation to fit smaller, simpler businesses. The objective is to enable each auditor to obtain reasonable assurance for an LCE's financial statements with a tailored, efficient approach. When it can or cannot be used, use only where jurisdiction has adopted it and entity meets qualitative and quantitative criteria. मतलब अगर किसी country में there are simplified norms for smaller entities, apply only there. Cannot be applied for listed entities, entities with public interest characteristics, and group audits where components include such entities. Qualitative characteristics of an LCE, that is less complex entity. An entity is likely an LCE where simple industry or business models apply, small or simple organizational structure, simple ownership, small centralized finance function, simple IT, limited use of complex accounting entries. मतलब ये complicated credit loss calculation वगैरह नहीं है. ठीक है. Risk-based approach has been retained. Proportionate documentation means sufficient but reduced administrative burden. Practical guidance on applying audit procedures in less complex environments and scalability allows auditors to tailor procedures to entity size or complexity. ठीक है. Benefits: reduces unnecessary procedures and documentation for small entities, focuses effort on material risk, that is, it gives you a more efficient, it ensures that your attention is focused on certain important elements and you don't overspend time on activities which are not so critical for smaller entities. Lowers the audit cost burden for the client because the auditor is going to take less time and preserves the audit quality. What could be points that might come in a question and what will come in handy is, one of the risks is that wrong application could happen, inadequate audit procedures and increased audit risk. You apply this standard, that less or reduced reporting requirement and auditing requirement wala standard, to an entity which is expected to do a full audit and disclosure. Where jurisdictional adoption is required, cannot be used unless permitted locally. Complex estimates in the sense कि जहाँ पे there is a requirement for credit loss modeling, or there is a regulated industry wala thing, or multi-layered groups है, holding and multiple subsidiaries and associates, वहाँ पे this might not be applicable. How to tackle it in the paper: start whether ISA for LCE can be applied. If suitable, explain how the audit approach differs. Less documentation, focus on key risks, simpler control testing. If not suitable, explain why is it not suitable, what are the risks and safeguards you could put in place. Then from a quality management perspective, highlight implications of misuse and be specific, link points to scenarios. Like, here we mentioned that there is a smaller centralized finance function, तो LCE applies. अगर large decentralized function होगा तो LCE will not apply. ठीक है. And some things that you can keep in mind: has the jurisdiction adopted this particular standard? If it is a listed public interest entity or group with multiple components, cannot use. High industry risk, cannot use. Complex IT, many estimates, decentralized finance, cannot use. If yes to LCE, document tailored risk focus, reduced admin, and still obtain sufficient evidence. ठीक है. Now, when it comes to, so that was pretty much it when it came to less complex entities. ISA 570 going concern wala points can also be made, it can pop up in your paper because SBR में they have increased the focus on going concern. So if SBR में increase हुआ है तो AAA में increase हो सकता है. We have covered ISA 570. You know that there is a separate paragraph on material uncertainty regarding going concern, right? And when to use it. Material uncertainty regarding going concern, उसको आप key audit matters में नहीं डाल सकते, है ना? Can you put it in emphasis of matter? Material uncertainty regarding going concern.
No. So we make that material related to going concern only when we have given disclosures regarding the whether it is qualified or adverse. Only then the paragraph will be included.
वो तो है,
Other than
बट मटेरियल अनसर्टेनिटी रिगार्डिंग गोइंग कंसर्न का पैरा ही अलग है, तो उसको ईओएम या केएम में नहीं डालना है, हाँ प्लीज रिमेंबर दैट। बाकी ऑफ कोर्स यू शुड अंडरस्टैंड द बिजनेस मॉडल ऑफ द एंटिटी, the current industry conditions, economic environment. This helps to identify business risks that may threaten the going concern. Key financial statement risks could be overstated non-current asset, overstated inventory where NRV is lesser than cost and inventory is super material for the financials, overstated receivables, incorrect valuation of financial instruments, or incorrect classification and disclosure of provisions. We have seen the indicators of going concern problems when we were doing that particular standard. And when you are responding to risks regarding going concern, analyze or discuss cash flow forecast with management, challenging of key assumptions, यहाँ पे skepticism का risk आएगा, assess reliability of underlying data, reviewing loan arrangements for breaches of covenant, then reading board minutes for financial difficulties, review post year end events, and evaluating alternative funding sources. These could be your core procedures. Bank confirmations, if banks refuse to confirm future facilities, increases risk significantly, perform further procedures. मतलब अगर बैंक ने बोल दिया कि यार ओवरड्राफ्ट विल नॉट बी रिन्यूड, या बैंक ने बोल दिया लोन विल नॉट बी एक्सटेंडेड, तो दैट कुड क्रिएट गोइंग कंसर्न क्राइसिस फॉर द कंपनी. When going concern basis is inappropriate, it will create an adverse opinion. When going concern basis is appropriate but a material uncertainty exists, if disclosure is adequate, unmodified opinion plus material uncertainty related to going concern paragraph. If disclosure is inadequate from the management end, qualified or adverse opinion. When liquidation basis is used appropriately, opinion may be unmodified but likely require emphasis of matter. Emphasis of matter सिर्फ उस मामले में हो सकता है जहां पे already that matter has been mentioned in the financials by the management. ठीक है. When clients face financial distress, they often request non-audit services that create self-review or advocacy threat, like restructuring advice, preparing cash flow forecast, and these might impair the ability of the auditor to objectively evaluate going concern. And this is the exam approach. Identify going concern indicators, evaluate adequacy of management's assessment, recommend further audit procedures linking them to identified risk, evaluating prospective financial information, loan covenants, uh, looking at the appropriate basis and modification of the audit report. ठीक है. Now, if you are auditing a specialized industry, like could be banking, airlines, agriculture, oil and gas, you will have to apply industry specific standards like IAS 41 if it is agriculture, IFRS 7 or 9 for banking. They could have certain specialized accounting treatments. So the reason for focus on this is that there is accounting complexity, not because of the size. ठीक है. Some of the key audit considerations: competence critical for engagement acceptance. If you don't have the right expertise, you should not take up these assignments. Audit planning will involve understanding the sector, business ops, regulatory requirements, industry related risks, specific or specialized transactions that happen. जैसे बैंकिंग में there is the concept of non-performing assets. इंश्योरेंस में there is the concept of underwriting. There is the concept of overriding commission. तो वो industry specific requirements you will have to understand. You will not ignore the normal risks, but you will focus on entity specific or industry specific risks also. ठीक है. You might have to make use of experts like banks में for valuing complex derivatives, in oil and gas for oil reserves certification, in agriculture for valuation of biological assets, in pension schemes for various plans. आपको actuaries का help लगेगा. You cannot simply accept expert conclusions without critical evaluation. तो उसका competence, capability, objectivity check करो, scope and objective of their work check करो, evaluate whether expert findings are adequate and consistent with other evidence, and avoid over reliance. ठीक है. और responsibility ultimately will stay with the auditor. You will have to highlight industry specific risks. We'll also have to talk about normal inherent risk, एक्सपर्ट ओपिनियन लगेगा तो अवॉइड गिविंग जेनेरिक लिस्ट। बहुत लोगों के इसमें ना मैंने फीडबैक दिया है कि योर पॉइंट्स बिकम टू जेनेरिक, यू हैव टू कोरिलेट एवरीथिंग विद फैक्ट्स ऑफ द केस एंड एग्जाम्पल्स। माइनिंग हो सकता है, एयरलाइन हो सकता है, यू कुड हैव डिफरेंट सिचुएशंस। जस्ट मेक श्योर दैट यू आर अप्लाइंग द राइट अप्रोच। यहाँ पे इंडस्ट्री स्पेसिफिक रिस्क, सेक्टर स्पेसिफिक रिस्क becomes important. बाकी एवरीथिंग इज प्रिटी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड एंड हाँ यूज ऑफ द एक्सपर्ट दैट बिकम्स important। ठीक है। ओके।